Now, the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for June 16th. Well, here we are on day 167 of the year. Bill formed after last night's Tropical Weather Bulletin, and just as quick as it formed, it is now extratropical after peaking with winds of 60 miles an hour. Carlos barely holding on as a tropical depression at this time. 31 storms have formed so far this year. That number continues to increase in the coming days. In the Atlantic, there is extratropical storm Bill there. There is also Invest 92L with a 90% chance of formation we are giving it in the next 5 days, and it does pose a threat to the Texas, Louisiana, and possibly further east in the Gulf Coast. In the Eastern Pacific, there's Carlos there, barely a tropical depression at this point. There's another area of investigation we got, 50% chance as it parallels the coast of Mexico. This is more towards day 4 to 5. In the Western Pacific, there are no storms active. It is all quiet there. Nothing really anticipated in the next 5 days there. Definitely good news for those that have already been battered by some of the other storms after Kagama went through China a few days ago. Same story in the Indian Ocean. There is nothing active there. Pretty much monsoon season at this point, which means that activity is coming to an end, and that is the wrap of the first peak there in terms of cyclone development. Now there's the North Atlantic. You can see Bill racing. It's been moving at a very quick pace over the last day, moving from 20 to 30 miles an hour. I think the last I checked it was moving at 36 miles an hour. You can also see Invest 92L there towards the bottom of the screen there. Then there's the Pacific. Carlos is barely there at this point. You can see that little one burst of convection. Otherwise, you can hardly tell that Carlos is still existent. I can't really see that new area of investigation yet, but although that of course could change in the coming days. There is the Western Pacific, a bit quiet there. You can see something going on in the South China Sea, a little broad, low pressure system, it's seemingly. Not going to be anything that develops into a tropical cyclone. Other than that, it's pretty much just sporadic cloud patterns that really aren't going to be anything indicative of a cyclone forming in the next several days there. So, all quiet in that aspect of things. There is the North Indian Ocean, of course. Bay of Bengal being the complete opposite of the Arabian Sea. Well, you got the Arabian Sea looking all quiet really, except for the eastern part. You've got the Bay of Bengal continuing with their rainy season over there, as expected. Zooming in back into the Philippine Sea, you can pretty much see what's going on there. Not really much to speak about, of course, with Kagama's remnants pretty much now all but gone, and really nothing to talk about in the next 5 days over there. So, good news. While the North Atlantic and Eastern Pacific are forming activity, it's really not the case for anywhere else. Here are the sea surface temperatures. You got some areas of 28 to 30 degrees Celsius where that new area of development is forming. Otherwise, it's pretty much 26 to 27 there. Gulf Coast is warming very nicely. It's going to be definitely warm enough for it to support 92L there. Main development region also warming nicely as a whole. Zooming out into the Atlantic, you can see the Gulf Stream waters are definitely warming as well. That's been what's allowed for Bill to intensify to 60 miles an hour earlier today. And overall, we're pretty much going to be seeing that warming trend continue. There's the North Indian Ocean, still fairly warm, 28 to 30 degrees Celsius, especially near the coast there of the Arabian and Bay of Bengal. In the Western Pacific, there's still some pretty good sea surface temps there, 29 to 30 degrees Celsius, infiltrating the large part of the region from the Philippines to the east. And then, of course, towards the southern hemisphere, we are entering the winter time there, so sea surface temperatures are on the decline there. So really, we're looking at temperatures that are conducive for development in the Western Pacific and North Indian Ocean. It's been the other conditions that have not been treating it so well. In terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies in the Eastern Pacific, it's actually been a little bit hard for storms to develop. There hasn't been that decent of a patch of above average temperatures there. Atlantic is looking pretty good. The Mid-Atlantic and Northeast states is where you can really see that sea surface temperature, and of course the subtropics as well. On this day in 2004, Super Typhoon Diane, who was becoming a Category 5, would eventually hit winds of 180 miles an hour, becoming one of the strongest June typhoons on record. The Dianu would later go on to strike Japan as a pretty formidable typhoon before turning extratropical as it raced northeastward. There was nothing else active on this day, as the Atlantic did not start their season until late July, and the Eastern Pacific did not have anything really active at all during the month of June in this day on 2004. So with that puts us at code green for right now. The next two names in the Atlantic are Claudette followed by Danny. In the Eastern Pacific, the next two names there are Dolores followed by Enrique. In the Central Pacific, the never-ending wait for Hone continues. Of course, it does look like we will be seeing Claudette soon, sure enough. In the Western Pacific, the next two names there are Champy followed by Infa. In the North Indian Ocean, it's going to be wild, but the next two names there will be Gulab followed by Shaheen. Of course, we're still continuing on with these names there. Australian region, the next two names there are Patty followed by Ruby. In the Southwest Indian Ocean, the next two names there, if we get any kind of storm there before the end of the month, Kanga and Muncie. And the next name for the South Pacific is Cody. That's all for now. We'll see you tomorrow night.